In the heart of Fresno, California, where the sun cast long shadows across the sprawling fields of agriculture, lived a young woman named Elena Martinez. At 26, she was a vibrant soul, known for her kindness and her uncanny ability to sense the emotions of those around her. But Elena harbored a secret that set her apart from her peers. She could see the spirits of the departed, trapped in a realm between life and the afterlife, burdened by their unresolved sins and guilt. Elena had first discovered her gift as a child. One summer evening, while playing in her grandmother's garden, she had encountered the spirit of a young girl, no older than 8, who wept silently beneath the old oak tree. The girl's translucent form flickered like a candle in the wind, and her sorrow was palpable. With a heart full of compassion, Elena approached her. And to her surprise, the girl spoke. "I can't leave until I find my doll," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Elena, guided by an instinct she didn't fully understand, promised to help. After a long search through the neighborhood, they found the doll, hidden in a neighbor's yard. As the girl clutched her long-lost toy, a radiant light enveloped her, and she vanished, leaving behind a sense of peace that filled the air. From that day on, Elena understood her purpose: to help lost souls find closure, and to banish the dark forces that preyed upon the living. As the years passed, Elena honed her abilities. She learned to differentiate between the spirits seeking help and the malevolent entities that thrived on despair. The latter were the shadows of the past, remnants of pain and suffering that had taken on a life of their own. They could invade homes, haunt individuals, and create chaos in the lives of the unsuspecting. Elena knew she had to confront these forces with courage and compassion. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over Fresno, Elena felt an unsettling presence in her apartment. The air grew heavy, and a chill crept up her spine. She closed her eyes, focusing on the energy around her. A dark figure loomed in the corner of her living room, its form shifting and writhing like smoke. It was a spirit consumed by anger and regret. A man who had once lived in the very building she now called home. Elena took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I can help you," she said softly, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. The shadow flickered, its form becoming more defined. She could see the man's face, twisted in anguish. "I didn't mean to hurt her," he rasped, his voice a low growl. "I was lost. I didn't know." Elena's heart ached for him. "What happened?" she asked gently, urging him to share his story. As he recounted the events of his life, the mistakes, the pain, and ultimately the tragedy that had led to his demise, Elena listened intently. She could feel his sorrow, the weight of his guilt pressing down on him like a heavy shroud. "I need to make amends," he whispered, tears streaming down his ghostly face. But how? Elena knew that for him to find peace, he needed to confront the loved ones he had wronged. "You must seek forgiveness." She replied, "You have to show them you're sorry, even if it's just in spirit." With her guidance, they devised a plan. Elena would help him visit the family he had hurt, allowing him to express his remorse and seek their forgiveness. That night, Elena led the spirit to a nearby house where the family still mourned his loss. As they hovered outside, she felt the tension in the air. The family was gathered in the living room, candles flickering as they shared memories of the man who had once been a part of their lives. Elena whispered words of encouragement to the spirit, urging him to speak. With a surge of energy, the man's voice echoed softly in the room, barely audible, but filled with sincerity. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you. I was lost, but I found my way back to you." The family paused, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. They could feel his presence, the warmth of his remorse washing over them. Tears flowed freely as the family began to forgive. One by one, they spoke words of love and understanding, acknowledging the pain, but also the joy he had brought to their lives. As the spirit absorbed their forgiveness, a brilliant light enveloped him, lifting him higher and higher until he finally vanished, free from the shackles of his past. Elena returned home, her heart swelling with fulfillment. She had helped another lost soul find peace, but she knew that her work was far from over. The world was filled with spirits in need, and Fresno held many more mysteries waiting to be uncovered. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity for Elena. She continued to assist spirits in finding closure, each encounter deepening her understanding of the human experience and the complexities of grief. Yet, with every soul she helped, a darker presence loomed closer, whispering in the shadows of her mind. It was a malevolent force, one that thrived on despair and sought to undermine her efforts. One night, as she prepared for bed, Elena felt a sudden chill sweep through her apartment. The lights flickered, and her heart raced. She sensed the dark energy coiling around her, tightening like a noose. "Show yourself," she commanded, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. From the depths of the darkness emerged a figure, tall and imposing, its features obscured by a shroud of shadow. "You think you can save them?" it hissed, its voice a low, menacing growl. "They are mine. They belong to the darkness." Elena stood her ground, summoning the strength she had cultivated over the years. "They belong to themselves," she replied defiantly. "They deserve peace, and I will help them find it." The figure laughed, a sound that echoed with malice. "You are but a child playing with forces beyond your understanding. You cannot fight me. I feed on their pain, their regrets. You will fail." With a surge of determination, Elena closed her eyes and focused on the light within her. She envisioned the spirits she had helped, their faces filled with gratitude and peace. "I am not alone," she whispered, summoning the energy of those she had freed. "I stand with them." The dark figure recoiled, its form flickering as if caught in a tempest. "You think your light can extinguish me? I am eternal." Elena opened her eyes, her resolve unyielding. "You may be eternal, but you are not invincible. I will not let you take any more souls. I will fight for them." With that declaration, she reached deep into her heart, channeling her compassion and love into a radiant beam of light. It burst forth, illuminating her apartment and casting the shadows away. The dark figure writhed in agony as the light enveloped it, pushing back the darkness that had plagued her. "Leave this place," she commanded, her voice resonating with power. "You have no hold here." With a final, anguished wail, the malevolent spirit was banished, dissolving into the ether. The air grew lighter, the oppressive weight lifting from her shoulders. Elena stood in the aftermath, breathing heavily but filled with a sense of triumph. She had faced her fears and emerged victorious, but she knew that this battle was only the beginning. In the days that followed, Elena became more vigilant. She sought out the spirits in her community, helping them find closure and healing. Word of her abilities spread, and soon people began to approach her, seeking assistance for their own haunted experiences. Each encounter brought new challenges, but Elena welcomed them, knowing that she was making a difference. One evening, a woman named Maria came to her, tears streaming down her face. "My brother died last year, and I can't let him go," she sobbed. "I keep hearing his voice, and I feel like he's still here, trapped." Elena's heart ached for Maria. "Let's see if we can find him together," she said gently, guiding the woman to a quiet space in her apartment. They lit a candle and closed their eyes, focusing on the energy around them. As Elena reached out to the spirit world, she felt a familiar presence. The air shifted, and a warm light began to glow. "Sophia," a voice called, filled with love and longing. It was Maria's brother, his spirit shimmering with a gentle radiance. "Brother," Maria cried, her voice breaking, "I miss you so much. Are you okay?" "I'm at peace," he replied, his voice soothing. "But you must let me go. I am always with you, but you need to live your life. Don't let my absence hold you back." Elena watched as Maria's tears flowed freely, the pain of loss mingling with the warmth of her brother's love. "I don't want to forget you," she whispered, her heart heavy. "You won't forget me," he assured her. "I will always be a part of you. But you must find joy again, live for both of us." As Maria absorbed her brother's words, a light enveloped him, brighter than anything Elena had ever seen. With a final loving smile, he faded into the light, leaving behind a sense of calm and closure. Maria opened her eyes, her expression transformed. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling but filled with a newfound strength. "I feel lighter. But what if he comes back? What if he's not truly gone?" Elena's heart sank at the fear in Maria's eyes. Sometimes spirits linger, especially if they feel a strong connection to the living. But if he's truly at peace, he won't return in sorrow. You must trust in that. As the night deepened, an unsettling chill crept into the room. Elena felt a prickling at the back of her neck, a sensation that something was watching them. The candle flickered violently, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. "Stay close to me," she whispered to Maria, her instincts screaming that they were not alone. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, sending both women jumping to their feet. "What was that?" Maria gasped, her eyes wide with terror. Elena steadied herself, her heart racing. "I don't know, but we need to check it out." They cautiously approached the kitchen, the air thick with an oppressive energy that made it hard to breathe. As they entered, they found the table overturned, dishes shattered on the floor. "Maybe it was just the wind," Maria suggested, though her voice quaked with uncertainty. Elena shook her head, her senses heightened. "No, this feels different." She closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind to the spirit world. As she did, a cold gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candle and plunging them into darkness. "Turn on the lights," Maria cried, panic rising in her voice. Elena fumbled for the switch, her heart pounding in her chest. As the lights flickered back on, they were met with a sight that sent chills down their spines. In the corner of the kitchen stood a shadowy figure, its features obscured, but the malevolence radiating from it was palpable. "Who are you?" Elena demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "What do you want?" The figure shifted, its form growing more defined, revealing a face twisted in rage and sorrow. "You think you can take them from me?" It hissed, its voice a low, guttural growl. "They belong to me." Elena felt a surge of fear but stood her ground. "You have no power here. Leave this place." The figure let out a bone-chilling laugh, echoing off the walls. "You are naive, little girl. You think you can save them all? I thrive on their pain. I will consume you, just as I have consumed them." Maria clutched Elena's arm, her eyes wide with terror. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Elena's mind raced. She had faced spirits before, but this was different. This was a darkness that fed on despair, a force that sought to undermine everything she had worked for. "We have to confront it together," she said, her voice resolute. "We can't let it take you or anyone else." With a deep breath, Elena reached deep within herself, summoning the light she had cultivated over the years. "You are not welcome here," she shouted, her voice ringing with authority. "You have no power over us." The figure recoiled, its form flickering as if caught in a storm. "You think you can banish me? I am eternal. I will always return." Elena focused on the warmth of the spirits she had helped, drawing strength from their love and gratitude. "You may be eternal, but you are not invincible. You feed on fear, and I will not give you that power." As she spoke, a brilliant light erupted from her, illuminating the kitchen and casting the shadows away. The dark figure shrieked, its form twisting and contorting as the light closed in on it. "No, this cannot be," it howled, its voice filled with rage and desperation. Maria, emboldened by Elena's strength, stepped forward. "You don't own us. We are not your playthings," she shouted, her voice gaining power. With their combined will, the light intensified, pushing back the darkness that had haunted them. The figure writhed in agony, its form dissolving into tendrils of shadow. "You will regret this," it screamed, its voice fading into the ether. With a final burst of energy, the light consumed the darkness, banishing it from their presence. The air grew lighter, the oppressive weight lifting as the figure vanished. Elena and Maria stood in the aftermath, breathing heavily, their hearts racing. "Is it gone?" Maria asked, her voice trembling. Elena nodded, though her heart still raced. "For now. But we must remain vigilant. Darkness can return when least expected." As they cleaned up the remnants of the chaos, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The shadows seemed to linger at the edges of her vision, whispering secrets of despair and loss that sent shivers down her spine. Each creak of the floorboards echoed like a warning, and the air felt thick with a sense of foreboding. Elena glanced at Maria, who was still shaken but resolute, and knew that they had to prepare for whatever darkness might come next. "Let's not dwell on what just happened," Elena said, forcing a smile to ease the tension. "We faced it together, and we can do it again." But deep down, she felt a gnawing dread that the malevolent force would return, stronger and more determined than before. As they finished tidying up, a sudden chill swept through the room, causing the hairs on Elena's arms to stand on end. The lights flickered again, and she felt an unsettling presence creeping back into the space, heavier this time, as if it had learned from its previous defeat. "Maria," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath, "we need to stay alert. I think it's back." The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, shifting and swirling as if they were alive, and Elena braced herself for the inevitable confrontation that loomed just beyond the veil of light. The atmosphere grew thicker, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. Elena's heart raced as she scanned the dim corners of the room, her instincts screaming that they were not alone. The shadows danced more violently now, flickering with a malevolence that made her stomach churn. Maria stood frozen, her eyes wide and reflecting the flickering light like two frightened moons. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Elena took a deep breath, trying to quell her own fear. "We need to confront it. We can't let it control us." She remembered the old tales her grandmother used to tell, stories of light battling darkness, of courage standing firm against despair. We have to find a way to push it back, together. As if in response to her words, the shadows surged forward, coalescing into a dark figure that loomed in the center of the room. Its form was indistinct, a swirling mass of darkness that seemed to absorb the very light around it. A low, guttural sound emanated from it, a mix of laughter and sorrow that echoed in their bones. Elena felt a wave of despair wash over her, memories of her past failures and fears flooding her mind. But she fought against it, focusing on the bond she shared with Maria, the strength they had found in each other. "Remember what we did last time?" she urged, her voice steadying. "We can't give in to it." Maria nodded, her resolve hardening. "Right, we have to fight back." Elena reached for the small lantern that sat on the table, its flame flickering but still alive. "We need to light the darkness," she said, her voice gaining strength. "Together." With a swift motion, she ignited the lantern, its warm glow pushing back the shadows momentarily. The figure recoiled, hissing as the light pierced its form. Encouraged by the small victory, Elena and Maria joined hands, channeling their fear into determination. "Light! Banish the dark!" they chanted in unison, their voices growing stronger with each repetition. The shadows writhed and shrieked, the sound clawing at their ears, but they held firm, the light from the lantern expanding as their combined will surged forth. The dark figure began to dissolve, its form flickering like a dying flame. But just as they thought they had won, a chilling whisper slithered through the air, wrapping around them like a cold wind. "You think you can defeat me? I am eternal. I am despair." Elena's heart sank, the weight of its words pressing down on her, but she refused to falter. "We are not afraid of you," she shouted, her voice echoing with defiance. "You thrive on fear, but we will not give you that power." The shadows recoiled again, but this time they seemed to pulse with anger. The air grew colder, and the lights flickered violently, casting eerie shapes on the walls. Elena felt a surge of energy, a connection to something greater than herself, and she poured it into the lantern, feeling the warmth spread through her fingertips. "Maria, focus," she urged, and together they concentrated on the light, envisioning it as a barrier against the encroaching darkness. The lantern glowed brighter, illuminating the room with a golden hue that pushed back the shadows, revealing the true form of the malevolent entity, a twisted visage of sorrow, its eyes hollow and filled with an insatiable hunger. With a final desperate push, they raised the lantern high, the light exploding outward in a brilliant flash. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage and despair as they were consumed by the light. But just as the darkness began to dissipate, Elena caught a glimpse of something lurking in the corners of her mind, a flicker of doubt, a whisper of fear. The shadows might be retreating, but she knew they would return, perhaps even stronger. As the last remnants of the dark figure faded away, the room fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting. But Elena and Maria knew that this battle was not the end. The darkness would always linger, waiting for the moment they let their guard down. "Let's keep the lantern close," Elena said, her voice steady but her heart still racing. "We'll need it for the shadows that are yet to come." Together, they turned towards the door, ready to face whatever awaited them outside, knowing that the fight against the darkness was far from over.